Hi, Michael.
Hello.
Welcome in Amsterdam.
Thank you.
It's very nice to have an interview with you about education and how to improve education, to improve it for our students for tomorrow. Can you give me just a brief notion about what you think good education, high-performance schools should be?
Well, first it should be the whole system, not just a few schools, the entire system. And it should focus on immersing students in learning that they find exciting. It should be able to assess and track how that's going, not so much for accountability, but for strategies for improvement. And it should develop leadership at each level, school level, infrastructure, and the government for that matter. So all of that, we've been doing this in Ontario the last 8 years. So we've had a lot of experience in understanding the specific parts of this.
And did you find out also how to improve the students' achievements in that?
Yes, the student achievement is the focus. So it's in some systems they might have aspirational goals, but when you look at the actual implementation, you don't see enough of the student progress. So we make sure the student and the results are the main focus, and then, so to speak, work backwards to say, what is it going to take for teachers to be more effective, for the school to be more effective? But it's all about results, getting better results, student involvement in it, and the education that can be measured.
And how do you see the role of a teacher in this whole process?
Well, the teacher has two roles. One is to figure out, with help, how to reach every child in the classroom or whatever the group she or he has. So it's very much what people call personalization, but it's learning how to do that specifically. So it's what we call precision. What are the specific things the teacher has to do? So that's one thing. The second thing the teacher has to do, and this is an expectation for the modern teacher, let's say, is they have to work with other teachers. There's expectation that it's the group that focuses together and they learn from each other. And then, of course, they have to be well led. Sometimes that's teacher leaders, other times it's the school principal, or whatever the system is. Those are the ingredients that are necessary.
Yeah, so the leader of a school, the principals, the middle management leaders, they have an important role in the school system.
Yeah, the leader, if you think of what's needed, you need organizational change, if it's one way of putting it, which is the school or bigger. And therefore, the leaders of the organization have to be helping to make that happen. So the leader has a very important role to put pressure and support, sometimes we say, not just pressure, but support, but not also just leaving people alone. They have to be engaged. So the leader's job is to engage people in a process that they find works and gets the results.
So we are pushing for a system and an environment where we can say there's a culture for change.
Yeah, it's a culture for change. I guess I'll say a culture for improvement, because there's lots of changes sometimes that are not very meaningful, or there are too many changes. So we don't think of innovation and change as the end result. It's the means to do that. So you have to be careful which changes that you take on.
And one of your expressions is you have to raise the bar and close the gap.
Yeah.
Can you explain that to me?
Well, we have in our system, we would call it the moral imperative. So the moral imperative is for all children to learn. And the starting point, of course, is there's a wide gap in terms of where some students are at the beginning. So what we want to do is raise the bar for all students and close the gap. So if it starts here, we want it to go like this, moving upwards. And in order to do that, you have to define it as a goal. You have to have the right pedagogy, the right measurements to know whether you're getting anywhere. You have to share results with other people, what's working, what's not working, and learn from it and get better at it.
And what does it mean, for example, also the involvement of the parents with this learning process?
Well, it's a bit, for us, a bit tricky, I guess I'll say, which is, there are different ways of doing this, but my preference is to build up the capacity of teachers who in turn then are more comfortable and want to involve parents as part of the solution. So if the parents come in too strongly and the teachers are not developed, there's too much anxiety or too much conflict. So I don't think parents will do their part at home, but it's really the teacher's role to figure out how to relate to parents. And I think the parent is always way more important because that's where the starting point is. But the teacher, once school starts, is really very important to be in the leadership position.
So how do you see the involvement of the community for the school?
I think we have, it depends on, if you take the whole, we're starting more and more with younger children. So we've just implemented full-day junior kindergarten, it's called. It's four-year-olds, 100% four-year-olds, and still before that. So there's quite a few things from in really early years, from birth to, let's say, age 4 or 5, where the community and the agencies are very important. And then to carry forward into the school with community, not just parents, partly being comfortable in the school, being present in the school. And this is where in the Netherlands there's quite a good track record. If you visit schools, they're much more, compared to my schools in Ontario, seem more relaxed, more parents coming naturally in and out of the school. But of course then there are the community agencies, health and youth agencies and that are part of this equation. But the school itself has to really get organized so it can be a proactive, develop these relationships with these others. This is why we put so much emphasis on the school as an organization, because if they're a bunch of individuals and they're not working as a group, they won't be able to relate productively to the outside community.
Okay. So what do you really think is the focus to become a high-performance school?
The focus is on some, it depends on if we're talking primary level, it's some of the basics, literacy and numeracy. We don't define those narrowly. We define them as starting to include problem solving and communication and collaboration. So that the focus has to be on what are the skills we're talking about. Make sure the basics are there, but build on them into the so-called higher order skills, and have proof that you're being successful from where you started to where you're going each year, and to have that, and to mobilize the whole school in that effort, the focus of the group. So we put a lot of emphasis on collaboration, on the professional learning community, devoted to this task where people are learning from each other, they're doing the right thing, and it's very specific. It's related to the results that society wants.
And for secondary schools?
Secondary schools, it's because if they do a good job at the basic level, secondary schools is more complicated. But for us, and we've had big success, our graduation rate, for example, in Ontario in the last 6 years has gone from 68% to 81%. Those that start, let's say, at age 13 or 14 and are graduating. And more and more it means you have to personalize the contact to students in the secondary school. So this means we call it putting the faces on data. So you have to know if your school has 1,000 students, each and every one, where are they, especially as they come in. So it's really personalizing. Secondly, it's getting students to into programs that are most relevant for them, which is another part of the personalization, and be able to see them develop in terms of that involvement. So, and then more and more, if you do the foundation work at the primary school, there's a lot of independent projects at secondary school. So students are taking responsibility for their own learning, guided by the teacher, but also learning from other students evaluating each other's work, joint projects. So many more, I guess I'll say, flexibility of projects, but still focused on the most important goals. Citizenship, linkage into the workforce, that's very important then. And we're beginning to see some of that specific innovative solutions at the secondary school. We started at the primary level and are, I think, fairly successful there, more work to do. But the secondary school in the last 4 years has been also a focus.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome, thank you.